Guys, hope you're all well. Welcome back to the shop and welcome to our YouTube channel where we're documenting the goings on in our shop and what kind of things we get up to on a daily basis, stock coming in, stock going out, and all sorts of bits and bobs. The last video was all about our mega sale which is coming up, which we're really excited about, and today I said we'd go through the rarities box and just some of the nice things that we have in stock at the moment. The thing is, it's ever changing here. We're getting collections in literally all of the time. And the sort of quality varies hugely between collections coming in. And obviously, sometimes there's some great rarities coming in, sometimes there's not. At the moment, I would say we're pretty stacked full of goodies. So it's a good opportunity to have a little look through. If you've not been to our shop before, I'll give you a tiny little tour. There is a longer tour as a whole video, but just a quick video quickly to give you a tour. So let's flip you around. So as you come into the shop, you'll find this middle table here, which is all the new in, and then we have the naughty box here, which is our rarities box. And I'll go through that in full in a minute. And obviously, as you come in, the first thing I do, and the first thing I'm guilty of not doing when I go and visit a record shop, is head down straight into the dig. And actually, I need to be better at just going in and looking up on the walls of wonder. So this is a little quick bit, and then I will pull a few bits down, a few choice bits down to talk through. And then behind me is usually where you'll find the real big boys hiding, you know, the real rarities. And then over here, this is where like our subgenres live. So soundtracks, jazz, blues, electronic, alt rock and stuff. So on the walls around here, that sort of mirrors that. Metal as well, some nice jazz bits. Should we go and dig into some of the bits on this wall over here then? So let's have a look what we've got. All of this stuff is new and sealed. You won't find any real massive rarities there because it's what we buy from our distributor. What have we got here? This was cool the other day that came in. A George Harrison, All Things Must Pass, but an Australian version. So it's not actually in the box. Let's have a little look because I thought this was quite cool. So yeah, quite a nice one here. This is an Australian press of All Things Must Pass. Australian presses are quite interesting to look out for. They're usually pressed differently like this. This usually comes in a box, but in this case, it's like a gatefold sleeve, which replicates the inner sleeves. So I thought that was quite cool. Yeah, Australian presses, especially, I know there's some Morrissey rarities. One of his albums is actually called Educated in Reverse in Australia. And that's quite a nice rarity, and they have different sleeves, and also there's very few of them pressed in Australia because it's a smaller population. Same with Ireland as well, and I know that's the case with a lot of the Smiths records as well. The Irish pressings, very difficult to come by, especially if you're a completist. So this might be interesting to somebody who collects versions of this album or Beatles stuff because it's a bit of an oddity. Let's continue the tour then. So up here we've got a couple of My Bloody Valentine up there. Really hard to come across, especially Loveless. Never come across an original copy of that. But yeah, again, late 80s, we're veering into CD territory there, where CDs began to take over, so less records were being pressed. And also, I don't think a huge amount were pressed when they first came out. Iggy and the Stooges, sadly not first pressings, but early 80s pressings of those records. The original presses, again, sold terribly when they first came out. But now Iggy and the Stooges are revered and seen as the forefathers of punk. So therefore, everyone wants those early albums, so they've become rare now. Does that make sense? So, on to another guy, just exactly the same. Nick Drake, obviously, did terribly in his lifetime. I'm sure off the top of my head that there were only around 5,000 copies of this sold when it first came out. And if you compare that to other sales of late 60s records, that is appalling sales. Think of that as a gig venue and how many people that would fit in. It's tiny worldwide sales, especially for an artist that was on Island Records. Let's just wing it round and I'll show you a little bit about this. So yeah, we'll take a quick look at this. So this is actually a 1972 pressing. Early pressings, had a different label. This is what we call a pink rim label, okay? I'll stick a picture up of the original label that you're looking for. Original label ones are, I've never come across one. They're very, very hard to find. So this is 1972, still in Nick Drake's lifetime. So it's nice to have something that kind of has that bit of history towards it. Still a hard record to find. Comes with the original Ireland inner as well, which I always think is a nice little touch, blue inner. And as you can see, this copy's been around the block. It's had a bit of wear on it, but the disc itself is absolutely beautiful. One of my favorite artists of all time. Again, just didn't make it in their lifetime, you know, sold so poorly. Therefore, now he's revered as one of the most beautiful folk singers of our time. And it's really hard to get hold of original copies because of that. But while we're on the Nick Drake hunt, we do actually have an actual first press at the moment of his second album, Brighter Later, which is it's an okay copy sleeve wise, but the disc is really lovely, plays really nicely as well. So yeah, we'll come on to that bit in a minute. Let's have a quick whiz through. It's quite hard to not go through absolutely everything because I get too excited. Violent Femmes there, which I think is cool because it's got the original press release with it. Press release and press cutting. So anything like that we find in, I absolutely love it. Ticket stubs and stuff like that. Ogden's not a first press. I think it's 1 year later on the pink label. What else we got that's nice and rare? Oh, we've got the Wailers Catch a Fire. I always love this record. Let's whiz around here, see if I can put it down and show you. So again, Nick Drake was on Ireland, so was Bob Marley. And this one comes as a lighter, a zipper lighter. And as pretty much all of them, this pin here goes, so it's actually been split pinned back together at some point. But yeah, very cool. Fits the vibe of the record perfectly. Get back in there. And then with all things like this, there's tiny little indicators of whether things are actually a first press or not. This one isn't actually a first press. I think it came out at the same time or maybe a year later, but on the back, the first press has the Ireland office's address on the bottom. This one doesn't. So slightly later press. Therefore, that has a bit of a dent on the value because people are looking for a true first press. More My Bloody Valentine. That's the second EP, which is really hard to come by. Sunny Sunday Smile. Cool, Led Zepp, not particularly rare, but it's nice to have in, sells well. Big Black, songs about. And this, which is weird, I'd never even heard of this. Bruce Springsteen's Complete Works from 1990, which takes basically his albums up to 1990. But yeah, this is a nice piece. It's got all those albums in it. I'm not going to get it out, too much hassle. And then let's come and have a little look behind me. We've got a copy of this at the moment, The Huge World of Emily Strange by Piccadilly Line. That's a very hard record to come by. We've got T-Rex. Now, that one has the poster in. The poster is incredibly difficult to come by. A bit like Black Sabbath, the boxed Masters of Reality. The poster is worth pretty much more than the record. That's the case with that one. A very common record usually, but with that poster, obviously teenage girls and boys just stuck it on their wall because he's a cool one, isn't he? And then we've got Dark Side of the Moon on a solid blue label. So the first initial presses had a solid blue label, and the band and management said, well, we can't read the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon writing, so you're gonna have to change that. So then it became an outline blue triangle on the label. Again, I wouldn't say it's massively rare. We've had, this is probably our, I don't know, 5th, 6th copy through the door in 3 years. So they do come along very often, but if you think about it, Pink Floyd, biggest selling band from the 70s, a huge band, massive album as well, but to have a rarity within that album probably means that it's quite sought after. People like to see it and people know about it. And then we've got Aphrodite's Child, 666, okay? and Catherine Will, that's a hard one. Again, into the 90s there. I'll just show you the 666. So this is on Vertigo Records, which was a 70s record label that had loads of proggy, psyche, heavier rock sort of stuff. Black Sabbath were on there notably. And yeah, some of these fetch huge amounts of money, some of them, and some not so much. This one's medium, I would say. Well, it's quite a lot of money. I mean, it's one of the only records that you can price at the title, I would say. So yeah, we got that one. So yeah, then come over, like I say, this is like subgenres. And then we had a really nice jazz collection in recently. So some really nice jazzy bits. I mean, these two are probably the pick of the bunch. Never been repressed, Argentinian jazz, and it's bloody good as well. So yeah, this is your only option of getting a copy of this record. And same as this one here, which is on Esquire, which is a famed jazz label. That is absolutely banging, that is. Donald Byrd's on there, George Wallington Quintet. Yeah, absolutely superb, that is. And like I say, you can't get that any other way apart from that press, hence the high price. And some other nice bits. Not got much in the realms of metal at the moment, in rarities really. I wish I had a first press of that though, that's a killer. And then we'll go round and we'll have a little look into the actual rarities box. Let's have a look in here. So some of these come along quite often. However, I would consider them rarities because, well, they're a bit pricier than others, but also they're quite tricky to find. Field Mice on Sarah Records, so anything on Sarah Records, well, that I've come across anyway, is very tricky to come across. 90s stuff, again, really tricky. Stuff with press releases, which is cool. Jericho, which is a band that used to be called Churchill's, Israeli, sort of hard rock. Absolutely amazing album that is. And then we move into some more modern rarities. Soundtracks. Obviously, when soundtracks come out, not many are pressed or weren't pressed back in the day because they weren't hugely popular. Now there's a huge market for them. So something like this, it's incredibly tricky to find. And then we've got some record store day stuff that has come out. Everyone looks at this in the shop and then sees the price and goes, it's not for me. But yeah, a record store, limited numbered press of this. There's the number on the back. I can't remember how many it was, 10,000 or something. So some record store day stuff just disappears into obscurity or clogs up the sale bins in shops, but other things continue to hold their value. And then stuff like this, which is, you know, a well-known band, Squeeze, but an album released in the 90s, I think 1994, therefore not many pressed on record, becomes tricky to find. That's the same with this Wedding Present album as well, and this Slow Dive album, which is from 1995. It has had a repress just last year, so that could affect the value of this one quite dramatically. I think that's the same with like Buckingham Nicks. That was repressed last year, and actually first presses still hold their value. It's not a hugely valuable record. Fully signed, Skunk Anansi stuff. Alter Bridge again, that's a bit more of a modern one. 2021, might have been a record store day one, but hard to come by. This one's a crazy one, Dua Lipa, but the complete edition. So it's a 3 LP version of an album that is around the £15 mark, but goes for an insane amount of money because, again, very few pressed. And then Swans, this is a cool one. So this is hand painted by Michael Gira. And there were only 500 of these done. So this is number 5 of 500. And I don't think the drugs are quite kicked in at that point because he just did some circles. Midway through the numbers, they're quite crazy. And then towards the end, he goes back to this sort of style. It all depends. 9 Inch Nails. This one's a crazy rare one, really hard to come by. Kano, so in the UK grime scene. Is it a triple album again? Yeah, triple album. And my brother bought this from JD Sports of all places. But yeah, incredibly hard to get. And then just some bits and bobs that are quite nice and tricky. Chapped House, not incredibly expensive, but quite hard to get. Verve's first release. Nuclear, so that's another one on the Vertigo label. A later Spaceship label though. Small Faces, first unboxed with a spelling error on it. That's a hard one to come by. One of 2000, 2LP gold. But even a repress of that is quite tricky to find. That is a great fun album. Really raw and heavy on Dandelion, which was John Peel's label. What else have we got? And then some bits that are obscure and rare, but will we ever sell them? We might have to put some stuff online. That's one thing to note. We don't sell online. We only sell in the shop for various reasons. But if you ever spot anything on any of our videos, we're more than happy to post out, but we don't list stuff online at the moment. We are looking at possibly sorting out a website with some of our rarities on there, but at the moment, we love having them in the shop. So there's no real, yeah, we like them as things to look at in the shop. We have got quite a few rare singles, but I'll have to do a different day on that. But the reason why I wanted to do the video today is the rarest record we have had in. Joy Division, and Ideal for Living, their first EP from '78. Incredibly rare, incredibly rare. Hand folded by the band, and I've never seen one in real life, and I've never seen one in this condition. This is museum standard. I know that you shouldn't band around wild gradings, but honest to God, well, the guy who sold it to me said he'd never played it. And I believe him looking at the disc. It's phenomenal. So that is probably our rarest record at the moment. And then in the same collection, we had this, a factory sampler. Again, has some of the factory record artists on there, but it comes with some really cool stickers. Let me just put you down for a second to show you these. So it comes with some super hard to find stickers. There is a factory logo sticker in there as well. So these stickers, obviously, when you buy something like that, the stickers just get stuck to your record box or wherever. So to have those incomplete is lovely. So there we go. There's a little look through some of the rarities. Like I say, it's ever changing. We're always getting new stuff in. We're always getting new bits of rarities, and stuff sells quite quickly. So yeah, well worth popping in for a little browse if you're up for anything. Like I say, we don't sell online, but we are more than happy if you've spotted something in the video to post out. Yeah. So yeah, thanks again for listening to me ramble on. If you'd like me to focus on anything specifically in a video, you can always drop us a comment underneath and I'll do my best to help you out. Cheers guys, bye.